So Joe Biden finally broke his silence about the Tara Reade allegations against him. This is on Morning Joe. They did a pretty long interview, Mika did with Joe, and I'm going to show you some of that interview here. This is like towards the end of the interview. I feel like early on he was very forceful in denunciating and like very to the point, and then what you're about to see is kind of the area where he started to become Joe Biden, where he was more, fumbling and barely being coherent. But anyway, here's Joe Biden addressing the allegations. Take a look.
As we
look, this is a very. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Please. No, that's
As we await for the records from the National Archives, are you absolutely certain? Are you absolutely positive there is no record of any complaint by Tara Reade against you?
I am absolutely positive that no one that I'm aware of ever has been made aware of any complaint, a formal complaint made by or a complaint by Tara Reade against me at the time this allegedly happened 27 years ago, or until I announced for I guess it was in April or May of this year. I know of no one who's aware that any complaint was made.
I've got two more questions. The first.
Okay, please.
Go ahead. The first is about your University of Delaware records. Do you agree with the reporting that those records were supposed to be revealed to the public and then they were resealed for a longer period of time until after you leave, quote, public life? And if you agree with that, if that's what happened, why did that happen?
Because, look, the fact is that there's a lot of things of speeches I've made, positions I've taken, interviews that I did overseas with people, all of those things relating to my job. And the idea that they would all be made public, and the fact while I was running for public office, they could be really taken out of context. The papers are position papers. They are documents that existed, and that when for example, when I met with Putin or when I met with whomever, and all of that to be fodder in a campaign at this time, I don't know of anybody who's done anything like that. And so the National Archives is the only place there would be anything having to do with personnel records. There are no personnel records in the Biden papers at the university.
So personnel records aside, are you certain there was nothing about Tara Reade in those records? And if so,
I am absolutely certain.
Why not approve a search of her name in those records?
Approve a search of her name?
Yes, and reveal anything that might be related to Tara Reade in the University of Delaware records.
There is nothing. They wouldn't. They're not there. And if it's, I don't understand the point you're trying to make.
The point I'm trying to make is that
personnel records by definition.
The point I'm trying to make is that you are approving and actually calling for a search of the National Archives records of anything pertaining to Tara Reade. I'm asking why not do the same in the University of Delaware records, which have raised questions because they were supposed to be revealed to the public and then they were sealed for a longer period of time. Why not do it for both sets of records?
Because the material in the University of Delaware has no personnel files, but it does have a lot of confidential conversations that I had with the president about a particular issue, that I had with the heads of state of other places, that would not be something that would be revealed while I was in public office or while I was seeking public office. It just stands to reason. To the best of my knowledge, no one else has done that either.
I'm just talking about her name, not anybody else in those records. A search for that. Nothing classified with the president or anybody else. I'm just asking, why not do a search for Tara Reade's name in the University of Delaware records?
Look, I mean, who does that search?
The University of Delaware. Perhaps you set up a commission that can do it. I don't know. Whatever is the fairest way to create the most transparency.
Well, look, Mika, she said she filed a report. She has her employment records still. She said she filed a report with the only office that would have a report in the United States Senate at the time. If the report was ever filed, it was filed there, period.
If you could speak directly to Tara Reade about her claims or anything, what would you say?
This never, ever happened. I don't know what is motivating her.
So what this reminds me of is there were a couple of moments in the debates that Biden had with Bernie where Bernie kind of cornered him on a bad vote that Biden has made. I don't remember what the exact issue was, so forgive me on that. It could have been Wall Street deregulation, NAFTA. There's a number of things it could have been. But Bernie cornered Biden and said, "Oh, you didn't do this?" And Biden was just like, "Right, I didn't do that." And I remember being floored. I remember being floored because whatever the charge was from Bernie, it's like 100% that it's on the record that Biden did do what he's accusing him of doing. Again, I don't remember the exact issue. I just remember being floored when Biden, like, with complete confidence asserted, like, "No, I didn't do that." And the reason why that's popping up in my head is when you watch the entire interview, again, you just saw like the final, whatever it was, 4 minutes or something like that. When you watch the entire interview, early on, he's even more forceful and to the point in saying, "No, didn't happen. I don't know why she's doing it. Makes no sense. Not true. And this is a non-issue. Sure, you're supposed to hear women out. You're supposed to believe women enough to investigate their claims. But then if you investigate it, facts are facts. And it's a fact that nothing happened." And so he was really strong in denunciating it. And, you know, people don't normally follow politics as closely as you do and as closely as I do. And when Biden denies in that debate with Bernie that he did something that he definitely did, people are just going to look at his confidence and how he asserts it and go, "I don't know, I guess Biden's telling the truth. He seems pretty strong in saying that." And I fear that that's exactly what's going to happen here too. So regardless of whether or not you believe Tara Reade, I think your average person is going to watch the entire interview and go, I think we could put this to bed now. So I think, you know, it brings me no joy to say this, but I think he's totally going to get away with it. And I think that he always has the out, and other Democrats always have the out of, and I've heard it 1,000 times, if you bring up something like this about Biden, they'll say, "Yeah, but Trump did the same thing." And usually they say, like, "Yeah, but Trump is worse. He did even more sexual assault." And I mean, I know that sounds absurd because it's like, okay, well, take out sexual assault and put in murder. And it's like, imagine that conversation. Somebody's like, "Hey man, listen, Biden murdered somebody, like literally physically murdered somebody." And somebody could be like, "Yeah, but Trump physically murdered more people. So what are we going to do? We got two options. Go with the person who's murdered fewer people." I know that's absurd, but this is how people are thinking about it, and this is how people are talking about it. And I think that we've really gotten to the point, guys, that we're in the ultimate postmodern political era. And what I mean by that is there's no like objective truth and then everybody kind of concurs that there's a truth out there and then we all react accordingly to the truth. No, people just bulldoze through and create their own reality. And we've seen Trump do that 1,000 times when he was caught in a corner and he just comes out swinging and goes, "No, wrong. I don't agree. You're wrong." And then he just keeps going forward. And eventually people go, "All right, I mean, I guess, what do you want me to do?" He's not. Like, there has to be a moment of coming down to earth where you acknowledge the truth in order for something to stick. And so as long as Biden just keeps saying, no, didn't happen, no, then he's going to get away with it. He's going to get away with it, especially because the news cycle is so quick these days that something's in the news one day and, like, you know, it's totally gone within 2 days. And the reason why the Tara Reade thing keeps popping up is because there's been a slow drip of more evidence. And the only way that this stays in the news is if there's a continual slow drip of more evidence. So it went from, you know, just the allegation to the tape coming out of her mom calling into Larry King in like 1993 to talk about it, but she alludes to it in a vague way. And then you have the neighbor verifying Tara Reade's story, saying that in like 1995, she told her exactly what Biden did to her. But the thing that, and here's a very important point, the thing that the Biden people are going to seize on is that over the years, publicly, her story has changed. Now, when you talk to experts on this kind of stuff, they say immediately that it's a common thing for a sexual assault survivor to like slowly over time release the details. And, you know, Tara Reade was a tried and true Democrat and like really looked up to even many of the people that we slam on this show because we say they're corporate Democrats and they really don't care. They don't have a strong ideology. They're just vapid careerists. But she really looked up to a lot of these people. She was a hardcore Democrat. And, you know, she said, like, seeing some of the reactions like Stacey Abrams and how she downplayed what happened to Tara, that this is like breaking Tara's heart. But when you look at it from that perspective, it's clear to see why perhaps early on she was conflicted because she's like, Biden, Senator, Democrat, I like him. And it's like, well, what do I do? Well, she was living with it for a long time, but the public story had changed from no, you know, it was sexual harassment to now it's sexual assault and penetrating with his fingers against her will. So the Biden people will seize on that fact that the story has changed over time to say credibility totally shot, and so the whole thing is a lie. But the final thing I want to say on this is Biden is doing a little bit of jujitsu there in terms of what he's calling for, because he's making the argument, oh, you know, my personal records, which were just sealed again at University of Delaware, they wouldn't have anything about this in there, so there's nothing to see there. That's one of the things he's saying. And then the other thing he's saying is, well, if there were to be a record of this at the time, it would be in the Senate, and he names the, you know, specific archive or office or whatever. But everything that I've read on this seems to indicate he's doing a little bit of a jujitsu move where it's like, actually, no, if that record were to exist, it would be in this thing. And he's not being forthcoming, and he's kind of diverting. And if he really wanted to put this to bed, he could release all of his records, the University of Delaware stuff. And now he says, oh, they'll nitpick it for everything that's political in there. Well, Mika says, no, just do a search for her name. And whatever you find, release it. But he's like, no, he doesn't want to do that. Why? So he doesn't want to release his records in his archives. And then the Senate, I think, is rejecting releasing stuff on it as well. So you have his own records at the University of Delaware, they're not being released. The Senate office, which might have something on this, is not being released. But guys, honestly, I think that really misses the point either way, because Tara Reade's been up front. You're going to see a record on it, but the record is not going to be what she's now describing as the penetration with fingers and all that stuff. So even if Biden and his team were to release it, they could, again, just be like, see, it didn't happen. She's saying it was something else, or story changed. I guess she has no credibility. So I think people are getting a little too caught up in the record aspect of this. But he is doing a little bit of a diversion there, and I honestly think that he's going to get away with this either way. You know, it's just the dominant strain of thought in the country, and I know because I've had conversations with people who are a lot less political than perhaps you and I are, and when you bring it up, the first thing they say is, Trump's got the same thing. With Trump, it's even more. It's even worse. It's even more people. This is what they say. And all Biden really had to do from a political perspective, if I was running Biden's campaign, I would have told him, just complete and utter denial, swat it aside, and move forward. That's it. And by the way, he ignored it a really long time. That was strategy number one. Just ignore it. It'll go away. Let it come in and out of the news cycle, donezo, move on. The only reason anybody's even asking him about it, because the media would protect him, but the only reason they're asking him about it is because of the slow drip of evidence that kept coming out. But all he has to do is swat it aside, say, nope, not true, fake news, and then move forward. Listen, if Trump has taught us anything, it's that. It's that there's no scandal unless you agree there's a scandal. You understand that point? That's very important. And if any of you get into politics in the future, I hope you take that to heart. There's no scandal unless you agree there's a scandal. So if you come out there and you're like, no. How you like them apples? No. Then eventually the story just goes away. So it happened with Trump a million times. It's going to happen again with Biden. And, I will say the people running his campaign are clever, because I said from the beginning of the race, you got to hide him. And what they do, they hit him. And for this, I would have made the same point that they did, which is forceful denunciation. And that's it. And then move forward. And, again, putting aside whether or not you believe Tara, if he wants to handle it, this is how he would handle it. So he could, if he wanted to, release all the records, but he's not doing that, which perhaps might lead some to believe, I guess he does have something to hide. But like I said, I think that in the records, it wouldn't be the claim that's happening today, because over time, her claim has evolved. Her claim has changed. Now, you could say, if you want to look at that as evidence that it didn't happen, hey, that's your prerogative. If you want to look at that as evidence of what many experts say on this, which is over time, these people reveal more details about an assault, you could look at it in that way too. I don't know, and I'm not here to make a judgment on that in particular. All I know is that from a political perspective, I think he's going to get away with it. And I specifically showed you the part of the interview there, which was the most awkward and the worst part. And if you watch the whole thing, you'll see the entire time he's just like, nope. So we're in the postmodern political era. You create your own reality. And it looks like he's just sticking to no and moving forward. And so, if anything, I do feel bad for Tara, because the vitriol and the smears that have come her way are just terrible. They're the accusations of being a Russian puppet. That's like the first thing they go to. Secret Republican. They got they trotted out all the greatest hits to go after Tara. And perhaps this is why she was hesitant in the first place to come out, and why, she feared that retribution. She was supposed to do an interview on Fox News, and then she canceled. For a long time, she rejected going on Fox at all because she didn't want this to be used as a partisan cudgel. But she had agreed to it, and then she canceled, and she says it's because, my family's been getting death threats. And I listen, I just think it really does go to show you the hypocrisy point has been made 1,000 times, but that's what this is, that Biden and his merry band of corporate Democrats, they never believed in what they said they believed in. I've had conversations about I've talked about the Me Too stuff, and you guys know I've always taken a position that due process is really important, due process matters, and I do think that a tagline like "Believe Women" almost swings the pendulum too far in the other direction, where it's like, what do you mean the default is guilty until proven innocent? That seems, kind of un-American in a way. But it was the corporate Democrats who fully embraced the Believe All Women stuff, fully embraced Christine Blasey Ford, who had less evidence for what happened to her than, Tara Reade has against Biden. But since they were able to weaponize it against Brett Kavanaugh, a political enemy, they all, fully embraced it, the Me Too and Time's Up stuff. And I just think it's an amazing unmasking to show just the rank hypocrisy to anybody who followed this stuff closely. They flip the standard immediately when it's politically convenient, which just shows you they really never believed in anything. It was always just a partisan cudgel. And so I think when you look at these people for what they are, partisan hacks, then their actions make a lot more sense in that context. But it's just, it's an eye-opening moment when you realize that this is exactly the stuff that, we attack the Republicans for. How many times have we seen it, how tribal they are, where they used arguments against Obama, arguing like he's a Marxist Kenyan. And it's like, wow, really? You believe in birtherism? So I guess you're just a total idiot, and your whole identity is wrapped around being a partisan hack. But then, the Trump era comes, and then you see people embracing Russiagate. They say Trump is a puppet of Vladimir Putin's Russia, and it's like, you guys are doing the same thing. You guys are doing the birtherism thing. This is the birtherism thing. I don't have any evidence, but I want to believe it to be true because it's a sexy idea that, the president of the opposing party is somehow, an evil actor of a foreign nefarious country. And so I'm going to embrace that. It just goes to show you, it was never like, because Democrats love to pride themselves on, we believe in science and evidence and facts. And then they immediately give up on science and evidence and facts when politically convenient to use as a partisan cudgel against the other side. And this is the same thing. Oh, we believe in the Me Too movement and the Time's Up movement and believe women. And then, the second there's a accusation against a powerful Democrat, they immediately start sounding like the most hardcore Republicans who are defending Brett Kavanaugh. really sad, but I think in many ways this issue's put to rest, and we're going to move on from it.